The rain came down in sheets that October evening, turning the streets of Brooklyn into rivers of reflected neon and headlights. Emma Torres stood behind the counter of Rosie's diner, watching the water cascade down the large front windows, distorting the world outside into an impressionist painting of grays and amber lights. The diner smelled like it always did: coffee, grilled onions, and the faint sweetness of apple pie warming in the display case. She wiped down the same spot on the counter for the third time, her mind elsewhere. The envelope in her apron pocket felt heavier than it should, the hospital bill inside a reminder of the numbers that kept her awake at night. $3,000, due in 2 weeks, and that was just this month's installment. "Emma, honey, table 6 needs a refill," called Rosie from the kitchen window. The owner of the diner was a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and a voice that could cut through the dinner rush like a knife through butter. "On it," Emma replied, grabbing the coffee pot and forcing a smile onto her face. The smile was part of the uniform, as essential as the pale blue dress and white apron she wore every shift. Table 6 was occupied by Mr. Chen, a retired postal worker who came in every Tuesday and Thursday like clockwork. He always ordered the same thing: turkey club, no tomato and black coffee, and he always left exactly $3 as a tip, counting out the bills with careful precision. "How's your mother doing, Emma?" Mr. Chen asked as she topped off his cup. His eyes were kind behind wire-rimmed glasses, genuine concern creasing the corners. "She's hanging in there," Emma said, the practiced response coming easily. "The new treatment is showing some promise." It wasn't entirely a lie. The treatment was showing promise. The problem was paying for it. "That's good to hear. You tell her Harold Chen sends his best wishes." "I will, Mr. Chen. Thank you." Emma moved through the diner with the efficiency of someone who had worked there for 5 years. Every table mapped in her muscle memory. Table 3 needed ketchup. Table 7 was ready for their check. The couple at table 2, first date, by the looks of their nervous laughter, needed a few more minutes before ordering. The dinner rush was winding down. It was nearly 8 o'clock and the rain had driven most people home. Only the regulars and the desperate remained, seeking shelter from the storm with coffee and comfort food. The bell above the door chimed. Emma glanced up from wiping down table 5, ready to call out the standard greeting, but the words caught in her throat. The man who entered was different from their usual clientele. Everything about him spoke of money: the tailored charcoal suit that fit him perfectly despite being soaked from the rain, the Italian leather shoes that squeaked slightly on the linoleum floor, the expensive watch that caught the fluorescent light as he ran a hand through his dark, wet hair. He was young, maybe early 30s, with sharp features and eyes that scanned the diner with an intensity that made Emma's instincts prickle. This wasn't someone who had wandered in by accident. This was someone who needed somewhere to be that wasn't where he'd come from. "Sit anywhere you like," Emma called out, her voice steady despite the odd feeling in her gut. The man nodded once, a sharp, economical movement, and slid into the booth at table 8. The corner booth, Emma noticed, where he could see both the door and the street outside. His shoulders were tense beneath the wetsuit jacket, and his hands, resting on the table, were perfectly still. The stillness of someone forcing themselves to appear calm. Emma approached with a menu and a glass of water. "Coffee? Please." His voice was low, cultured, with the faintest trace of a Brooklyn accent underneath the polish. "Black." "Coming right up." As she turned to get the coffee, Emma caught him checking his phone, the glow illuminating his face for just a moment. His jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the screen with an expression she couldn't quite read. Worry? Anger? Fear? She poured the coffee and brought it back to his table. "Do you need a minute to look at the menu? Or do you know what you'd like?" "The meatloaf," he said without looking at the menu. "And thank you." The thank you surprised her. It was genuine, not the automatic politeness of someone who'd never worked service. He made eye contact when he said it, holding her gaze for just a second longer than necessary. "You got it," Emma said, scribbling the order on her pad and heading to the kitchen. "Who's the fancy guy?" asked Tommy, the line cook, as he started on the meatloaf. Tommy was 22, covered in amateur tattoos, and had dreams of opening his own restaurant someday. "No idea," Emma said, "but he's wound up tighter than a drum." "Maybe he's running from an angry wife," Tommy suggested with a grin. "Not wearing a ring," Emma observed, then caught herself. Why had she noticed that? She busied herself with other tasks, refilling Mr. Chen's coffee, bringing the check to table 7, laughing at the nervous jokes from the first date couple. But her attention kept drifting back to table 8. The man sat perfectly still, his coffee untouched, his eyes moving between the door and the window. Every few minutes he would check his phone, his expression growing darker each time. Then Emma saw them. 2 police cars pulled up outside, their lights cutting through the rain but their sirens silent. Officers emerged, 4 of them, their raincoats slick and dark. They weren't rushing, but they were purposeful, and they were heading straight for the diner. Emma's heart jumped into her throat. Her eyes flew to the man at table 8, and in that instant, she saw his entire body tense. His hand moved toward his jacket, not reaching for anything, just an instinctive movement, and then he forced himself still again. Their eyes met across the diner. In that moment, Emma saw something that made a decision for her, before her conscious mind could catch up. It wasn't fear in his eyes, it was resignation, the look of someone who'd been running and had just run out of road. But beneath that, something else. A flash of the person he might be when he wasn't whoever he was right now. The bell above the door chimed. Emma didn't think. She grabbed a menu and moved toward table 8 with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. As she reached his booth, she held the menu up high, directly between his face and the door, leaning in as if taking an order. "I need you to stay very still," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "and trust me for exactly 2 minutes." The man's eyes widened slightly, but he didn't move. Smart. "Evening, officers," Rosie called out from behind the counter, her voice cheerful but with an edge of concern. "Everything all right?" Emma kept the menu positioned, her body blocking the line of sight to the booth as she pretended to point out items to her customer. She could see the officers in her peripheral vision, 2 of them approaching Rosie, 2 scanning the diner. "We're looking for someone," one of the officers said. He pulled out a phone, showing something to Rosie. "Male, early 30s, dark hair, about 6 feet tall. Would have come in within the last 10 minutes, possibly wet from the rain." Emma's hand trembled slightly, making the menu shake. The man at the booth noticed, his eyes meeting hers with a question in them. She gave the tiniest shake of her head. "Stay still. Haven't seen anyone like that," Rosie said, and Emma could hear the truth in it. From Rosie's position behind the counter, the high-backed booth would have blocked her view of the man entering. "Emma, honey, you seen anybody like that come in?" This was it. The moment that would change everything. Emma turned, keeping her body positioned to obscure the booth, and looked at the officers with what she hoped was helpful innocence. "No, ma'am. Just Mr. Chen over there, the couple at table 2, and this gentleman." She gestured vaguely at the booth without moving out of the way. "He's been here about 20 minutes, I think. One of our regulars." The lie came out smooth as silk, surprising her. One of the officers took a step forward, trying to get a better look. "Mind if we check?" "Officer Patterson." The radio on his shoulder crackled to life. "We've got movement on Atlantic Avenue, suspect heading toward the subway. All units respond." The officers exchanged glances. One of them looked like he wanted to check the diner more thoroughly, but the other was already moving toward the door. "If anyone matching that description comes in, call it in immediately," the first officer said to Rosie, handing her a card. "Of course, officer. You boys stay safe out there." The bell chimed again as they left, hurrying back to their cars. The lights painted the diner red and blue for a few more seconds. Then they pulled away, sirens finally wailing to life as they sped down the street. Emma stood frozen, the menu still in her hand, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. What had she just done? Slowly, she lowered the menu. The man was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Surprise, definitely, but also something that might have been respect, or calculation, or both. "Thank you," he said quietly. 2 simple words, but loaded with meaning. Emma's mouth was dry. "I don't know why I did that." "Neither do I," he admitted. "But I owe you." "You don't owe me anything, I just—" She trailed off, not knowing how to finish that sentence. She just what? Put her job at risk? Lied to the police? Protected a complete stranger who was clearly running from the law? Tommy appeared at the kitchen window. "Meatloaf's up." The normal announcement in the decidedly abnormal situation made Emma almost laugh. Instead, she grabbed the plate and set it down in front of the man, her hand still shaking slightly. "Are you in trouble?" she asked, keeping her voice low. "Yes," he said, and she appreciated the honesty. "What kind of trouble?" He looked at her for a long moment, seeming to weigh his words. "The kind where the less you know, the safer you are. What I can tell you is this: I haven't hurt anyone. I'm not running from something I did, I'm running from something I'm trying not to be part of." It was cryptic, but something in his tone made her believe him. "You should eat," Emma said, surprising herself with the practical suggestion. Then you should probably go. He nodded, picked up his fork, and took a bite of the meatloaf. This is excellent. The mundane comment in the surrealness of the moment did make her laugh then. A short, nervous sound. Tommy's a good cook, she managed. She retreated to the counter, trying to look normal, trying to act like her world hadn't just tilted on its axis. Rosie was in the kitchen, probably going over inventory. Mr. Chen was reading his newspaper. The first date couple was still nervous laughing. Everything was normal, except nothing was normal. Emma poured herself a glass of water with shaking hands and drank it down. What had she done? She could lose her job for lying to the police? Worse than that, what if he really was dangerous? What if she'd just helped someone who... No, she'd seen his eyes. She'd seen the resignation, the weariness, the fundamental decency that not even fear could quite hide. She'd made a choice, and she'd have to live with it. 15 minutes later, the man stood. He pulled out his wallet, expensive leather, Emma noticed, and placed several bills on the table. She approached to collect them and nearly gasped. $200 for a $15 meal. I can't accept this, she said automatically. You already did something you can't take back, he said quietly. Let me do the same. He held out his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Emma shook it. His grip was firm, warm despite the rain he'd been in. What's your name? He asked. She shouldn't tell him. Every instinct said not to give this stranger any information he could use, but she'd already crossed that line. Emma. Emma Torres. Emma, he repeated, as if committing it to memory. I'm Marcus. He didn't offer a last name. She didn't ask. I hope whatever you're running from works out, Emma said. So do I. He paused at the door, looking back at her. You have kind eyes. Don't let this city take that away from you. Then he was gone, disappearing into the rain and the night. Emma stood holding the $200, her mind racing. Rosie emerged from the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron. That man leave you a good tip? Yeah, Emma said faintly. Yeah, he did. Well, good. Lord knows you deserve it, working as hard as you do. Rosie peered out the window. Strange night, with the police and all. Wonder what that was about. No idea. Emma lied for the second time that night. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. She went through the motions, clearing tables, wiping counters, making small talk with the remaining customers. But her mind was elsewhere, replaying the moment over and over. The look in his eyes, the weight of the decision, the smooth lie she'd told. Who was Marcus? What was he running from? And why had she risked everything to protect him? At 10 o'clock, Rosie flipped the sign to closed. Emma helped with the final cleanup, sweeping the floor while Tommy scrubbed down the grill and sang off-key to the radio. You okay, Emma? Tommy asked as they were getting ready to leave. You seem weird. Just tired, she said. Long day. Tell me about it. My feet are killing me. They left through the back door, Rosie locking up behind them. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, reflecting the streetlights in puddles and streams. Emma walked to the bus stop, her mind still churning. She pulled out her phone and on impulse Googled Marcus Brooklyn arrest. Nothing came up that seemed relevant. She tried police search Brooklyn tonight. A few hits on local news sites, but nothing specific. Maybe that was good. Maybe it meant he'd gotten away, whatever away meant. The bus came, half empty at this hour. Emma found a seat by the window and watched the city slide past. Bodegas with security gates pulled down, late-night diners glowing in the dark, people hurrying home from late shifts like her. She thought about her mother, probably asleep now in the hospital bed, machines beeping softly around her. She thought about the bills, the constant pressure of never quite enough money, never quite enough time. She thought about how one split-second decision could change everything. When Emma finally got home to her tiny studio apartment in Sunset Park, it was nearly 11. She kicked off her shoes, peeled off the diner uniform that smelled like grease and coffee, and collapsed onto her second-hand couch. The $200 sat on her coffee table, the bills crisp and new, evidence of a night that didn't quite feel real. Emma picked up one of the bills, holding it up to the light as if it might tell her something about the man who'd left it. But it was just money, silent and neutral. She thought about depositing it, about putting it toward her mother's bills. She thought about ripping it up, about pretending the whole night had never happened. In the end, she folded the bills carefully and put them in an envelope in her desk drawer. Tomorrow she'd wake up and go to work and everything would be normal again. Tonight had been an aberration, A strange moment in the rain that would fade into just another story about working at the diner. That's what Emma told herself as she fell into an uneasy sleep, still wearing her clothes, too exhausted to even make it to her bed. But deep down, in a place she didn't want to examine too closely, she knew that nothing was going to be normal again. Some decisions once made can't be unmade. Some moments, once lived, can't be forgotten. And sometimes a single act of kindness or recklessness or instinct or fate sets things in motion that no one can stop. Emma Torres had no idea that by covering a stranger's face with a menu, she'd just altered the course of her life forever. But she would learn. Starting tomorrow, when the flowers began to arrive. The morning after felt like waking up from a dream that Emma wasn't entirely sure had happened. She lay in bed for a few extra minutes, staring at the water-stained ceiling of her studio apartment, trying to reconcile the memory of last night with the pale sunlight filtering through her curtains. Had she really lied to the police? Had a stranger really left her $200? The envelope in her desk drawer confirmed it had all been real. Emma groaned and rolled out of bed. Her shift started at 11, which gave her time to visit her mother at Brooklyn Methodist Hospital before work. She showered quickly in the cramped bathroom, the water never quite getting hot enough, and dressed in jeans and a sweater. The October chill had settled into the city overnight, and the weather forecast promised more rain by evening. The hospital was a 20-minute bus ride from her apartment. Emma had made this trip so many times in the past 8 months that she could do it with her eyes closed. The same stops, the same turns, the same antiseptic smell greeting her when she walked through the automatic doors. Her mother, Patricia Torres, was in room 412. She'd been moved out of intensive care 3 weeks ago, which the doctors said was progress. To Emma, it just meant a different room with the same machines, the same worried waiting. "Morning, mija," her mother said as Emma entered. Patricia was sitting up in bed, her dark hair, so much thinner than it used to be, pulled back in a loose bun. She looked tired, but her smile was genuine. "You're early today." "Couldn't sleep," Emma said, kissing her mother's forehead and settling into the visitor's chair. "How are you feeling?" "Like a pincushion," Patricia joked, gesturing to the IV in her arm. "But Dr. Reeves says my numbers are looking better. The new treatment might be working." "That's great, Mom." Emma tried to inject enthusiasm into her voice, but her mother knew her too well. "What's wrong, Emma? You have that look." "What look?" "The look that says you're carrying the weight of the world and trying to pretend you're not." Emma laughed despite herself. "I'm fine. Just tired. Work was busy last night." They talked for a while about nothing important. The terrible hospital food, the nice nurse on the morning shift, the soap opera Patricia had become addicted to during her stay. Normal conversation, the kind that let both of them pretend that everything was normal, that this was just a temporary setback and not the new reality they'd been living for months. But when visiting hours were over and Emma stood to leave, Patricia caught her hand. "Emma, whatever it is you're worrying about, it'll work out. You're stronger than you think." "I know, Mom." Emma squeezed her hand gently. "I love you. Love you too, mija. Don't work too hard." If only her mother knew that work was the least of her concerns right now. Rosie's diner was already bustling when Emma arrived at 10:45. She tied on her apron, pinned her name tag to her uniform, and stepped into the familiar rhythm of the lunch rush. Wednesday was usually their busiest weekday. Contractors and construction workers from nearby sites, office workers on their lunch breaks, retirees looking for a hot meal and conversation. Everything felt normal, comfortingly, reassuringly normal, until 12:30 when the flowers arrived. A delivery man pushed through the door carrying an enormous bouquet of white roses in a crystal vase. The arrangement was stunning, easily $100 worth of flowers, maybe more. "Delivery for Emma Torres," he announced. The diner went quiet. All eyes turned to Emma, who froze with a coffee pot in her hand. "I think there's been a mistake," she said. "No mistake. Says right here, Emma Torres, Rosie's Diner." He consulted his clipboard. Table 3. Table 3 was currently occupied by Mrs. Kowalski, a widow in her 70s who came in every Wednesday for the tuna melt special. "I don't understand," Emma said, but she was already moving toward the delivery man, a knot forming in her stomach. The flowers were exquisite, long-stemmed white roses, perfect and pristine, arranged with delicate baby's breath and greenery. Tucked among the blooms was a small white card. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she opened it. For Table 3, with gratitude, M. The elegant handwriting was unmistakable. Marcus, "Oh my goodness," Mrs. Kowalski exclaimed, clapping her hands together. "Are these for me?" Yes," Emma managed, setting the vase on the table. What else could she say? Mrs. Kowalski beamed, reaching out to touch the soft petals. "How wonderful. I haven't received flowers in years. Are you sure they're for me?" "The card says table 3, Emma said, which was technically true. The other customers were murmuring, craning their necks to see the impressive arrangement. Rosie emerged from the kitchen, her eyebrows raised in a question. "What's all this?" she asked. "Flowers," Emma said weakly. "For Mrs. Kowalski." Before Rosie could ask more questions, the delivery man spoke up. "I've got more in the truck." "More?" 20 minutes later, Rosie's diner looked like a flower shop. Every occupied table had a bouquet. Roses, lilies, orchids, tulips. Each arrangement was different, each one clearly expensive, and each one had a small card that read the same thing. "For table number. With gratitude. M." The customers were delighted. Phones came out to take photos. People were posting on social media about the mysterious flower delivery at Rosie's diner. The construction workers joked about their table getting the fanciest flowers they'd ever seen. The office workers speculated about secret admirers and romantic gestures. Emma wanted to sink through the floor. "Emma, what on earth is going on?" Rosie pulled her aside into the kitchen where Tommy was staring out at the flower-filled dining room with wide eyes. "I have no idea," Emma lied, and she was getting distressingly good at lying. "Someone sent flowers to every table in the diner and you have no idea? Maybe it's a publicity stunt? Or someone's idea of a joke?" Rosie studied her for a long moment, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "Emma Torres, I've known you for 5 years. You're a terrible liar. But if you're not ready to tell me what's going on, I won't push. Just be careful, okay?" "Okay," Emma whispered. The rest of the lunch shift was chaos. New customers came in, drawn by the social media posts, curious about the flower mystery. The diner was fuller than it had been in months. Rosie was pleased about the business but kept shooting Emma concerned looks. Emma's co-worker, Jen, a college student who worked part-time, cornered her during a brief lull. "Okay, spill," Jen demanded. She was 21, studying marketing at Brooklyn College, and had bright red hair that matched her personality. "Who's the secret admirer?" "There's no secret admirer." "Emma, come on, this is literally the most romantic thing I've ever seen. Flowers for every table? That's movie-level grand gesture stuff. It's not romantic, it's complicated." "Everything's complicated at our age," Jen said with a grin. "That's what makes it interesting. So who is he? How did you meet? Why won't you just admit this is amazing?" "Because it wasn't amazing. It was terrifying." But Emma couldn't explain that without explaining everything, and she wasn't ready to do that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. "I need to get back to work," Emma said, escaping before Jen could ask more questions. By the time Emma's shift ended at 6, her feet ached, her head pounded, and she'd received approximately 1,000 questions from customers, co-workers, and Rosie. She changed out of her uniform in the tiny employee bathroom, pulled on her jacket, and slipped out the back door. The evening air was cool and damp, promising rain. Emma walked quickly toward the bus stop, her mind churning. What was Marcus thinking? Why would he do this? The flowers were beautiful, yes, but they were also a spotlight, drawing attention to her in a way that made her deeply uncomfortable. She needed to make this stop. Back in her apartment, Emma sat at her desk and opened her laptop. The ancient machine wheezed to life, the fan whirring loudly. She hesitated for a moment, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, then typed, "Marcus Bellini, Brooklyn." The search results loaded slowly. When they did, Emma's breath caught in her throat. The first result was a news article from the New York Times dated 3 years ago. "Bellini family faces federal investigation." She clicked through, her eyes scanning the text. The Bellini family, long suspected of involvement in organized activities in the New York area, is now the subject of a federal investigation. Sources close to the investigation suggest that authorities are particularly interested in the family's business operations and financial dealings. Marcus Bellini, 29, son of the late Vincent Bellini, has taken over management of the family's legitimate businesses, including several restaurants, a construction company, and real estate holdings throughout Brooklyn and Manhattan. Emma's hands had gone cold. She clicked on another link, this one from a local Brooklyn news site. Marcus Bellini attends charity gala. The article was accompanied by a photo, and there he was. The same man from the diner. dressed in a tuxedo, standing with a group of well-dressed people at what looked like a formal event. He looked younger in the photo, maybe 2 years ago, but it was definitely him. The same sharp features, the same intense eyes. She kept reading, clicking through article after article. Most were vague, dancing around specifics, but the picture they painted was clear. The Bellini family had a reputation. They owned legitimate businesses, yes, but there were whispers of other activities, other connections. Marcus had apparently been trying to distance himself from the family's more questionable associations, focusing on the legitimate operations. But his last name carried weight and implications. Emma sat back in her chair, her heart pounding. She'd protected a man who was connected to organized crime. Not just connected, he was apparently running the family's operations, at least the legal ones. What had she done? Her phone buzzed. A text from Jen. "OMG Emma, you're trending on Brooklyn Eats Instagram. The Flower Diner mystery." Emma groaned and checked Instagram. Sure enough, Rosie's Diner and Thosir Flower mystery were gaining traction. Photos of the flower-filled diner, speculation about the mysterious sender, requests for Rosie's address from people who wanted to visit tomorrow. This was getting out of control. Thursday morning brought more flowers. Emma arrived at work to find another delivery man waiting outside the diner with a van full of arrangements. This time, they were even more elaborate. Exotic orchids, birds of paradise, stunning mixed bouquets in colors that seemed too vibrant to be real. "You've got to be kidding me," Emma muttered. Rosie met her at the door, arms crossed. "Emma, honey, we need to talk." They went to the small office in the back. Really just a closet with a desk and a filing cabinet. Rosie closed the door and leaned against it. "I'm not going to ask who's sending these flowers," Rosie said. "That's your business. But this is affecting the diner. We had twice our usual customers yesterday, and it looks like today's going to be the same. That's good for business, yes, but Emma, I'm worried about you. This kind of attention, this kind of display, it's not normal. And the person doing it, they're not thinking about how this affects you." "I know," Emma said quietly. "I'm going to make it stop." "Are you in some kind of trouble?" "No, I don't think so. It's complicated." Rosie sighed and put a hand on Emma's shoulder. "You're a good kid, Emma. One of the best workers I've ever had. Whatever's going on, just be smart about it, okay? And if you need help, you ask. Don't try to handle everything on your own." "Thank you, Rosie." The Thursday shift was even busier than Wednesday. The flowers kept coming. One arrangement arrived at lunchtime, another mid-afternoon, each one for a different table Emma was serving. The deliveries had become an event. Customers were timing their visits to try to see the next delivery. People were taking selfies with the flowers. A local food blogger showed up and asked to interview Emma. She declined. By the time Emma's shift ended, she was exhausted and frustrated. This had to stop. She caught the delivery man as he was leaving with the 5th empty cart of the day. "I need to talk to whoever's sending these," she said. The delivery man shrugged. "I just deliver what I'm told to deliver, miss. I don't have contact information for clients. There has to be a way to reach them. A phone number, an address, something." He looked uncomfortable. "Look, all I can tell you is the orders come through a service. The client pays in advance, provides the addresses and delivery schedule. I don't ask questions." "Please," Emma said. "This is important." Something in her tone must have gotten through to him. He sighed and pulled out his phone, scrolling through his contacts. "I'll give you the number for the service. Maybe they can help you. That's the best I can do." Emma saved the number in her phone. "Thank you." That evening, alone in her apartment, Emma stared at the number for a full 10 minutes before she worked up the courage to call it. A polished female voice answered. "Elite Floral Services. How may I assist you?" "I need to speak to someone about a flower order," Emma said. "Multiple orders, actually. Being delivered to Rosie's Diner in Brooklyn." "I see. And what is your inquiry regarding?" "I need them to stop. I need to speak to whoever's sending them." There was a pause. "May I ask your name?" "Emma Torres." Another pause, longer this time. "One moment, please." The hold music was classical, something by Mozart. Emma paced her small apartment, her heart hammering. The voice returned. "Ms. Torres, I've been authorized to provide you with a direct contact number. The client has requested that you call at your convenience." Emma scrambled for a pen. "Okay, I'm ready." She wrote down the number with shaking hands, thanked the woman, and hung up. For a long moment, she just stared at the digits on the page. This was it. Once she called this number, she'd be stepping deeper into whatever this was. She could just ignore it, block the number, tell the flower service to refuse future orders. But others had noticed her now. That's what he'd said, wasn't it? Or would say. She hadn't talked to him yet. Emma took a deep breath and dialed before she could change her mind. It rang twice. Then, Emma. Marcus's voice was warm, almost pleased. I hoped you'd call. What are you doing? The words came out harsher than she'd intended. Expressing my gratitude. By sending flowers to every table I serve? By turning my workplace into a circus? I apologize if I've caused you inconvenience, he said, sounding genuinely contrite. That wasn't my intention. Then what was your intention? Because from where I'm standing it looks like you're trying to draw attention to me, and I don't appreciate it. There was a pause. You're right. I didn't think it through. I just wanted to do something significant, to show you that what you did mattered. I covered your face with a menu for 30 seconds. It wasn't that significant. It was to me, Marcus said quietly. You didn't know who I was. You didn't know what I'd done or hadn't done. You just saw someone who needed help and you helped them. In my world, that doesn't happen. Ever. Everything comes with strings, with expectations, with debts. But not you. You just helped. Emma didn't know what to say to that. She sat down on her couch, the phone pressed to her ear. I need you to stop sending the flowers, she said finally. All right, I will. Just like that. Just like that. I don't want to make your life difficult, Emma. I wanted to thank you, but I see now that I went about it the wrong way. Thank you, Emma said, relief flooding through her. I appreciate that. May I ask you one thing before we end this call? Emma hesitated. What? Would you be willing to meet me? Just once for coffee or a meal, so I can thank you properly, in person. I don't think that's a good idea. I understand. But the offer stands whenever you're ready. He paused. Emma, I need to tell you something. The flowers, the attention they've brought to you. I didn't consider the consequences. Others have noticed you now. People who know who I am, who know that I don't do things without reason. Emma's blood ran cold. What does that mean? It means be careful. Be aware of your surroundings. If anyone approaches you, anyone who seems interested in your connection to me, don't engage. And if you need anything, if you feel unsafe at all, call this number, day or night. I'll make sure you're protected. Protected from what? From who? Hopefully from nothing and no one. This is just a precaution. You helped me, and I brought attention to you because of it. I want to make sure you're safe. That's all. Emma's mind was reeling. I don't want to be part of your world. I know. And you don't have to be. Just be careful. Please. The line went quiet for a moment. Emma could hear the sound of traffic in the background on his end, the faint wail of a siren. Marcus, she said, why were the police looking for you that night? That's a long story, and not one I can tell you over the phone. But I can tell you this. I haven't hurt anyone. I'm trying very hard not to be the person everyone expects me to be. Sometimes that's harder than it should be. I looked you up, Emma admitted. I know who you are, who your family is. Then you know why I can't walk away completely. But I'm trying to do things differently. Better. Emma wanted to believe him. Part of her did believe him. The flowers will stop tomorrow, Marcus said. You have my word. And Emma? Yes? Thank you, for everything. You're a good person. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. He hung up before she could respond. Emma sat in the silence of her apartment, the phone still in her hand, her mind churning with 1,000 thoughts. She should feel relieved. The flowers would stop. The attention would die down. Everything would go back to normal. But Marcus's warning echoed in her mind. Others have noticed you now. What did that mean? Who had noticed? And noticed what? That a waitress had received flowers or that she'd protected Marcus from the police. Emma tried to push the thoughts away. She was probably overthinking this. Marcus was just being cautious, maybe overly so. Nothing was going to happen. She was wrong. Friday was blissfully flower-free. A few customers asked about the mysterious deliveries, but without new arrangements arriving, the excitement began to fade. The diner gradually returned to normal. Emma's shoulders, which she hadn't realized were tense, slowly began to relax. Maybe it was over. Maybe Marcus had been overly cautious. Maybe everything really would go back to normal. Friday evening, Emma stayed late to help Rosie with a deep clean of the kitchen. By the time they finished, it was nearly 11 o'clock. The streets were quiet. Most businesses closed. Only a few bars and late-night bodegas still lit up. You need a ride home? Rosie asked as they locked up. No, I'm fine. The bus runs until midnight. You sure? It's late. I'm sure. Thanks, Rosie. They parted ways, Rosie heading to her car in the small parking lot behind the diner, Emma walking toward the bus stop 3 blocks away. The October night was crisp and clear, the earlier rain having washed the air clean. Emma's footsteps echoed on the sidewalk. She was halfway to the bus stop when she noticed it. A black car, a sleek sedan with tinted windows idling at the curb about half a block behind her. Emma told herself it was nothing. People parked on the street all the time. But as she continued walking, the car began to move slowly, keeping pace with her. Her heart started to pound. She walked faster. The car maintained its distance. Be aware of your surroundings. Marcus's words came back to her. Emma pulled out her phone, her hands shaking. She pulled up Marcus's number but didn't call. Not yet. Maybe she was being paranoid. She turned the corner, walking faster now. The bus stop was just ahead, well lit and visible from the street. If she could just get there. The black car turned the corner behind her. Emma broke into a jog. The bus stop was 50 feet away. 40. 30. The car accelerated slightly, pulling alongside her. The passenger window rolled down. Emma's finger hovered over the call button on her phone, ready to call Marcus, ready to scream, ready to... Emma Torres? The voice that came from the car was male, professional, almost polite. She didn't answer, didn't slow down. We'd like to talk to you for a moment. About a mutual acquaintance. Emma reached the bus stop and stood under the bright fluorescent light, her phone clutched in her hand. Other people were there. A teenager with headphones, an elderly man reading a newspaper. Safety in numbers. The car idled at the curb. Emma could see 2 figures inside, both in the front seat. But the tinted windows and darkness made it impossible to make out details. I don't know what you're talking about, Emma called out, her voice shaking but clear. We think you do. We just want to ask a few questions. Nothing to be afraid of. But Emma was afraid. Every instinct screamed danger. Leave me alone or I'm calling the police, she said loudly. The teenager with headphones looked up, pulling out one earbud. The elderly man lowered his newspaper, frowning. The passenger in the car said something to the driver, too quiet for Emma to hear. Then the window rolled back up, and the car pulled away from the curb, disappearing down the street. Emma's legs felt like water. She sank onto the bus stop bench, her whole body shaking. You okay, miss? The elderly man asked. I'm fine, Emma managed. Thank you. But she wasn't fine. She was far from fine. When the bus arrived 5 minutes later, Emma climbed aboard and found a seat near the driver, where the lights were brightest. She watched out the window the entire ride home, looking for the black car, but didn't see it again. Back in her apartment, Emma locked the door, threw the deadbolt, and slid the chain into place. Then she sat on her couch and stared at Marcus's number in her phone. Others have noticed you now. He'd tried to warn her. She hadn't understood, hadn't wanted to understand. But now it was clear. By protecting Marcus that night in the diner, by accepting the flowers, by becoming visible in his world, she'd painted a target on her back. People wanted information about him, and they thought she might have it. Emma's hands were still shaking as she finally pressed the call button. Marcus answered on the first ring, as if he'd been waiting for her call. Emma, are you all right? No, she whispered. You were right. Someone just tried to talk to me. A black car followed me to the bus stop. She could hear him moving, the sound of a door closing. Are you home now? Are you safe? I'm home. I'm okay. But Marcus, I don't understand what's happening. What do these people want? They want information about me, where I am, what I'm doing, who I'm working with, and because of the flowers, because I made you visible, they think you might know something. But I don't know anything. I know, and I'm sorry. This is my fault. I should have been more careful. He paused. Emma, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Tomorrow, I'm going to have someone watch your building and your route to work. You won't see them, but they'll be there. If anyone approaches you again, if you see that car or anyone suspicious, you call this number immediately. Do you understand? I don't want protection. I don't want to be part of this. I know, but you are part of it now, whether either of us wants it or not. And I'm not going to let anything happen to you because of my mistake. Emma closed her eyes, fighting back tears of frustration and fear. What have I gotten myself into? Nothing you can't get out of, Marcus said gently. I promise you, Emma, this will get resolved. These people will lose interest and things will go back to normal. But until then, please, let me make sure you're safe. Emma wanted to refuse. She wanted to tell him she didn't need his help, that she could handle this on her own. But the memory of that car, those voices, the fear that had gripped her, it was all too real. Okay, she whispered. Okay, thank you. Try to get some sleep. And Emma, I really am sorry. After he hung up, Emma sat in the dark for a long time, staring at nothing. Her quiet, predictable life had been turned upside down in less than a week, all because she'd made a split-second decision to help a stranger. She thought about her mother in the hospital fighting her own battle. She thought about the bills that never stopped coming. She thought about how hard she'd worked to build a stable, safe life in a city that didn't make that easy. And now, because of one moment of compassion or recklessness, she still wasn't sure which, all of that stability was threatened. Emma finally dragged herself to bed at 2 in the morning, but sleep was elusive. Every sound outside her window made her jump. Every car passing on the street below might be the black sedan returning. When she did finally drift off, her dreams were full of roses and shadows, of quiet voices asking questions she didn't know how to answer, of a man with kind eyes who'd brought danger into her carefully ordered world. Tomorrow, Emma knew, nothing would be normal again. The question was, what would she do about it? Saturday morning arrived with the kind of gray, oppressive sky that perfectly matched Emma's mood. She'd slept poorly, waking every hour to check the locks on her door, peering through the blinds at the street below, searching for the black sedan that had followed her. It wasn't there, at least not that she could see. Emma made coffee in her small kitchen, her hands steadier than they'd been last night, but her mind still racing. Marcus had said he'd have someone watching her building. The thought should have been comforting, but instead it made her feel trapped, like a piece on a chessboard being moved by hands she couldn't see. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Gray Honda Civic, license plate ending in 247, parked across the street. That's our person. You're safe. Emma went to the window and looked down. Sure enough, there was a gray Honda Civic parked on the opposite side of the street, 2 cars down from her building entrance. She couldn't see the driver clearly through the tinted windows, but knowing they were there sent a chill down her spine. This was real. All of it was terrifyingly real. Another text came through. I know this is uncomfortable. I'm sorry. This is temporary. Emma didn't respond. She didn't know what to say. She got ready for work mechanically. Shower, dress, makeup, the same routine she'd done 1,000 times. But nothing felt normal. As she left her building, she was hyper-aware of everything. The people on the sidewalk, the cars passing by, the gray Honda Civic pulling out and following at a discreet distance as she walked to the bus stop. The bus ride to the hospital felt longer than usual. Emma kept checking over her shoulder, watching the other passengers, looking for threats she wouldn't even know how to recognize. The elderly woman with the shopping cart? The businessman with the briefcase? The teenager scrolling through his phone? Any of them could be watching her, or none of them. The uncertainty was exhausting. At Brooklyn Methodist Hospital, Emma went through the now familiar routine of signing in, getting her visitor's badge, taking the elevator to the 4th floor. Room 412 was at the end of the corridor, and as she approached, she could hear voices inside, her mother's and Dr. Reeves's. Emma paused at the doorway. Dr. Reeves was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She was reviewing something on a tablet while her mother listened, her expression difficult to read. Oh, Emma, Dr. Reeves said, looking up. Good morning. I was just discussing your mother's latest test results with her. Emma's heart sank. The doctor's tone was carefully neutral, which in Emma's experience was never a good sign. What's wrong? Emma asked, moving to her mother's bedside. Patricia reached out and took Emma's hand. The new treatment isn't working as well as we'd hoped. My numbers aren't where they should be. Dr. Reeves set down the tablet. We're not giving up by any means, but we need to consider adjusting the treatment protocol. There's a newer therapy that's showing promising results in cases like your mother's, but... She hesitated. But it's expensive, Patricia finished quietly. Insurance will cover some of it, Dr. Reeves said. But yes, there will be significant out-of-pocket costs. I can have our financial counselor come speak with you about the specifics and potential assistance programs. Emma felt the familiar weight settle on her shoulders, heavier than before. How much are we talking about? The financial counselor can give you exact numbers, but you're looking at potentially $15,000 to $20,000 over the course of treatment, after insurance. The number hit Emma like a physical blow. She'd been struggling to pay the $3,000 a month for the current treatment. $15,000 to $20,000 was impossible. Completely, utterly impossible. I see, Emma managed to say. Dr. Reeves's expression was sympathetic. I know this is a lot to process. Take some time to review your options. We don't need to make any immediate decisions, but we should start the new protocol within the next 2 to 3 weeks for optimal results. After the doctor left, Emma sat with her mother in silence for a long moment. We'll figure it out, Patricia said finally, but her voice lacked conviction. Mom, I don't know how. We'll figure it out, her mother repeated, more firmly this time. We always do. You're not in this alone, Mia. I've got some savings and… Mom, your savings went to the first round of treatment. Then we'll apply for assistance programs, or take out a loan, or… Mom, Emma squeezed her mother's hand gently. Let me worry about this. You focus on getting better. That's exactly what I should be saying to you. You're my daughter. I'm supposed to take care of you, not the other way around. We take care of each other, Emma said, managing a smile. That's how it works. They talked for another hour about other things. The terrible hospital food, the nice new nurse, the stray cat that had shown up on the hospital's loading dock that the staff had been feeding. Normal conversation, but the weight of the doctor's news hung over them both. When visiting hours ended, Emma kissed her mother goodbye and made her way back to the elevator. She was so lost in thought, calculating impossible numbers in her head, that she didn't notice the man waiting by the elevator until she nearly walked into him. Excuse me, she murmured, stepping back. Emma Torres? The man asked. Every muscle in Emma's body tensed. He was tall, well-dressed in a dark suit, with slicked back hair and a face that might have been handsome if not for the coldness in his eyes. Who's asking? Emma said, her hand moving toward her phone in her pocket. A friend. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I just want to talk for a moment. About Marcus Bellini. I don't know anyone by that name, Emma said, stepping toward the elevator and jabbing the down button repeatedly. Come now, Miss Torres. The flowers, the phone calls? Let's not play games. The elevator doors opened. Emma stepped inside quickly, but the man's hand shot out, holding the door. I just have a few questions, he said, his voice still pleasant but with an edge underneath. Where is Marcus these days? What did you two discuss? Are you in regular contact? Let go of the door, Emma said loudly, hoping to attract attention. A nurse down the hall looked up. The man's smile widened. This doesn't have to be difficult. I'm simply asking for information. Marcus is an old friend. I'd like to reconnect. I don't have any information for you. Now let go of the door before I scream. For a moment the man's pleasant facade cracked, showing something harder underneath. Then he stepped back, releasing the door. You should be more careful about the company you keep, Miss Torres, he said as the elevator doors closed. Not everyone is as patient as I am. Emma's hands were shaking so badly she could barely pull out her phone. The elevator descended. 4th floor, 3rd floor, 2nd floor, and she dialed Marcus's number. He answered immediately. Emma? Someone just approached me, at the hospital. A man in a dark suit. He asked about you, where you are, what we discussed. Are you safe? Where are you now? I'm in the elevator. I'm leaving the hospital. The person watching you, the gray Honda, they're outside the hospital? I don't know, I didn't check. Emma, listen to me. When you get outside, look for the Honda. Walk straight to it. They'll take you somewhere safe. Marcus, I can't. I have to go to work. Emma. His voice was firm but gentle. You're not safe. Not right now. These people, they're not going to stop asking questions. Please, trust me. Just for today. Let me make sure you're safe, and then we'll figure out what to do next. The elevator reached the ground floor. Emma stepped out into the lobby, her heart pounding. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The gray Honda was parked in a loading zone outside the hospital's main entrance. As Emma approached, the driver's side door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was in her 40s with short dark hair and an athletic build, wearing jeans and a leather jacket. Emma Torres? The woman asked. Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. I'm Sarah. I work for Mr. Bellini. Please get in the car. We're going somewhere you'll be safe. Where? One of Mr. Bellini's properties. He's meeting us there. Emma hesitated, her mind screaming at her that getting into a car with a stranger was exactly what you weren't supposed to do. But the memory of the man at the elevator, his cold eyes and veiled threats, made the decision for her. She got in the car. Sarah drove competently through the Brooklyn streets, taking turns that seemed random to Emma but were probably chosen for a reason. They ended up in Dumbo, the upscale neighborhood near the Brooklyn Bridge, pulling into an underground parking garage beneath a converted warehouse building. This way, Sarah said, leading Emma to an elevator. They rode up in silence. Emma's mind was racing. What was she doing? She should be at work. She should be handling this herself. She should be. The elevator opened into a loft apartment that took Emma's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the East River and the Manhattan skyline. The space was beautifully furnished, modern but warm, with exposed brick walls and hardwood floors. Art hung on the walls, real art, not prints. And standing by the windows, his back to them, was Marcus. He turned as they entered. He was dressed more casually than the night at the diner, dark jeans and a charcoal sweater, but he still carried himself with that same careful control. "Thank you, Sarah," he said. "That'll be all for now." Sarah nodded and left, the elevator doors closing behind her. Emma and Marcus stood looking at each other across the beautiful room. "Are you hurt?" Marcus asked. "Did he touch you?" "No, he just asked questions." "About you?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry. This shouldn't have happened. My security should have been watching the hospital." "I don't understand," Emma said, and was frustrated to hear her voice shake. "Who are these people? What do they want?" "Sit down," Marcus said gently, gesturing to the leather couch. "Please, let me explain." Emma sat, and Marcus took a chair across from her, maintaining a respectful distance. "My family," he began, "has been in New York for 3 generations. My grandfather came from Sicily with nothing and built an empire. Restaurants, construction, real estate, all legitimate businesses. But," Emma prompted, "but along the way, connections were made, favors were exchanged, lines were crossed. By the time my father took over, the family had a reputation, associations with people and organizations that weren't entirely legal." "You mean organized crime?" Emma said bluntly. Marcus didn't flinch. "Yes, though my father always maintained that he ran legitimate businesses, and legally he did. The connections, the associations, those were in the background, deniable. And you? When my father died 2 years ago, I inherited everything, the businesses, the property, and the expectations. There are people who expect me to maintain those old connections, those old ways of doing business. And there are others, rival families, rival interests, who see my father's death as an opportunity to move in on what they consider open territory. The people who are following me," Emma said. "They're from a rival family?" Marcus nodded. "The Castellano family. They've been trying to pressure me into business arrangements I don't want. They're using intimidation, threats, trying to find leverage. And they think I'm leverage because of the flowers. Because you made it look like I mattered to you." "Yes." Marcus met her eyes. "And I am profoundly sorry for that. I wanted to do something meaningful to thank you, and instead, I put you in danger. That's on me." Emma stood up and walked to the windows, looking out at the city. From this height, Brooklyn looked beautiful, the river sparkling in the weak October sunlight. "What do they want from me?" she asked quietly. "Information, initially. Where I am, what I'm planning, who I'm working with. But more than that, they want to send me a message. That I'm not as protected as I think I am. That the people around me aren't safe." Emma turned to face him. "I'm not around you. I don't even know you. I served you meatloaf one time and made a stupid impulsive decision to help you. I know, but they don't know that. All they know is that I sent expensive flowers to a woman for days. In their world, that means something. That means you're important to me. So what do I do? How do I make this stop?" Marcus stood and walked closer but stopped a few feet away, respecting her space. "I can make this stop. I can make it clear to the Castellanos that you're not connected to me, that you don't have any information, that approaching you again will have consequences." "What kind of consequences?" "Legal ones," Marcus said firmly. "I've been working with federal investigators for the past year, providing information about the old connections, the illegal activities that I want no part of. In exchange, they're helping me legitimize my businesses completely. The Castellanos don't know this yet, but they're already under investigation for several serious matters. One word from me, and that investigation gets a lot more aggressive." Emma stared at him. "You're working with the feds?" "Yes. That's why the police were looking for me that night at the diner. Not to arrest me, but to bring me in for questioning about something I'd reported. I panicked. Didn't want to be seen going to a police station. Thought it might tip off the wrong people. So I ran." He smiled ruefully. "Not my smartest moment." "So you're, what, an informant? A cooperating witness?" "I'm trying to separate myself from my family's past. Build something legitimate. Something I can be proud of. It's not easy. There are people who don't want that to happen, who profit from the old ways, but I'm trying." Emma sat back down on the couch, her mind reeling. Nothing about this situation was what she'd expected. "What do you need from me?" she asked finally. Nothing. You don't owe me anything, Emma. I owe you. You helped me when you didn't have to, and I repaid that kindness by putting you in danger. Now I need to fix that. How? Marcus sat down again, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I'm going to have a conversation with the Castellanos. Make it clear that you're off limits, that you're not part of my world, and that any further contact with you will have serious legal consequences. They're smart enough to back off when the risk outweighs the reward. And if they're not, then I escalate. But I don't think it will come to that. The Castellanos are businessmen, for all their methods. They'll calculate the cost-benefit and move on. Emma wanted to believe him. How long will that take? A few days. Maybe a week. In the meantime, I'd like to provide security for you. Nothing intrusive. Just someone keeping an eye out, making sure you're safe. I don't want to live like that. I know. It's temporary. Just until this is resolved. Emma closed her eyes, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on her. The bills for her mother's treatment, the threats from people she didn't know, the constant fear that had become her new normal. There's something else, she said quietly. Marcus waited. My mother. She's sick. The treatment she's been on isn't working, and the new one, it's expensive. More than I can afford. She didn't know why she was telling him this. Maybe because she was too tired to keep pretending she could handle everything alone. How much? Marcus asked simply. 15 to 20,000, but I'm not telling you this because I want money. Everything is falling apart at once and I don't know how to fix any of it. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Let me help. No. Emma. No, she said more firmly. I've already accepted too much from you. The protection, fine, because this is your fault and you need to fix it. But my mother's bills? That's my problem. Mine to solve. It doesn't have to be. Yes, it does. Emma stood up. I need to maintain some control over my own life, Marcus. Do you understand? Everything else is spinning out of control. But this, my mother, my responsibility, that's mine. I'll find a way. Marcus studied her for a long moment, and Emma saw something shift in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or understanding. All right, he said. But if you change your mind, I won't. The offer stands regardless. They looked at each other across the beautiful loft apartment. Two people from completely different worlds, brought together by a moment of impulse and now tied by consequences neither had anticipated. I should get to work, Emma said. I'm already late. I'll have Sarah drive you. And Emma? Please be careful. Call me if anything feels wrong, if anyone approaches you, if you feel unsafe at all. I will. As Emma rode the elevator back down, escorted by Sarah to the waiting car, she felt the strangest mix of emotions. Fear, yes. Frustration, exhaustion, but also something else. Something she didn't want to examine too closely. Marcus Bellini was a complication she didn't need. He was dangerous, connected to a world she wanted nothing to do with. He'd brought threat and chaos into her carefully ordered life. But he was also trying to be better than his legacy. He was working with the authorities to legitimize his businesses. He'd been honest with her when he could have lied. And when he looked at her, she didn't feel like just another problem to solve. She felt seen. Emma pushed those thoughts away. This wasn't the time for confusion. She needed to focus on work, on her mother, on getting through each day until Marcus could make the Castellanos back off. Everything else could wait. The rest of Saturday passed in a blur. Emma went to work, smiling at customers, pouring coffee, taking orders, all while hyper-aware of every person who walked through the door. The gray Honda was parked down the street. Sarah or someone else inside, watching. Jen kept giving her concerned looks. You okay? You seem really out of it today. Just tired, Emma said for the 100th time. Didn't sleep well. The flower thing really freaked you out, huh? If only Jen knew. Yeah, something like that. Sunday was Emma's day off, but she couldn't relax. She stayed in her apartment, checking the locks compulsively, peering out the window at the street below. The protection was still there. A different car this time, a blue sedan. But it didn't make her feel safe. It made her feel watched. She tried to distract herself with television, with reading, with cleaning her already clean apartment. Nothing worked. Her mind kept circling back to the same questions. How long would this last? What if Marcus couldn't make the Castellanos back off? What if they escalated instead of retreating? And underneath all that, a quieter question. Why did Marcus Bellini, heir to a powerful family with resources Emma couldn't even imagine, care so much about what happened to one waitress from Brooklyn? Monday morning brought a cold rain and a text from Marcus. Meeting with Castellanos today. Stay alert. We'll update you tonight. Emma went to work with her stomach in knots. Every customer made her jump. Every door opening made her look up sharply. The blue sedan was parked outside, a constant reminder that her life wasn't her own right now. The lunch rush came and went. Emma was clearing table 6 when she felt someone watching her. She looked up and her blood ran cold. 2 men in expensive suits had taken a booth near the back. She recognized one of them, the man from the hospital elevator. He smiled at her, a predatory expression that made her skin crawl. Emma's hand went to her phone in her apron pocket. Should she call Marcus? Should she call the police? Before she could decide, the second man waved her over. "Miss, we'd like to order." Emma's legs felt like lead as she approached their table. "What can I get you?" "Coffee black," the hospital man said, "and a few minutes of conversation." "I told you, I don't have any information for you." "Then you won't mind answering a few simple questions," the second man said. He was older, maybe 50, with silver hair and cold blue eyes. "When did you last speak with Marcus Bellini?" Emma glanced toward the counter. Rosie was watching, her expression concerned. Other customers were starting to notice the tension. "I'm going to ask you to leave," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We haven't done anything wrong," the silver-haired man said pleasantly. "We're just customers ordering coffee, unless there's a reason you don't want to serve us." It was a trap. If she refused service, caused a scene, Rosie would ask questions Emma couldn't answer. But if she played along, if she let them stay, the door to the diner opened and Emma's breath caught. Marcus walked in, flanked by 2 men in dark suits. He looked different than he had in the loft. Harder, more commanding, every inch the person his reputation suggested. His eyes swept the diner and landed on the booth where the 2 men sat. "Gentlemen," Marcus said coldly, "I believe we have a meeting scheduled. At my office. Not here." The silver-haired man smiled, but it was strained. "Marcus, we were just having a conversation with your friend here. Miss Torres is not my friend. She's not my associate. She's a waitress who once served me meatloaf. That's the extent of our relationship." Marcus's voice was ice. "And she is completely off limits. Do I make myself clear?" The tension in the diner was thick enough to cut. Other customers had stopped eating, watching the confrontation with wide eyes. The hospital man stood slowly. "Of course. Our apologies if we caused any concern. We were simply curious. Your curiosity is noted and ended. If either of you or anyone associated with your organization approaches Miss Torres again, I will consider it a direct threat, and I will respond accordingly, legally and definitively." The word legally was emphasized, and Emma saw both men stiffen slightly. They knew Marcus was working with the authorities. The silver-haired man stood as well. "There's no need for threats, Marcus. We understand each other." "I hope so. For your sake." The 2 men left without another word. Marcus watched them go, then turned to Emma. His expression softened slightly. "Are you all right?" Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. "They won't bother you again. You have my word." He glanced around the diner, at all the watching faces, and seemed to make a decision. "I'm sorry for the disruption," he called out to the room. "Everything's fine. Please, enjoy your meals." He looked back at Emma. "I'll be in touch." Then he was gone, leaving Emma standing in the middle of the diner, shaking. Rosie appeared at her elbow. "Emma, honey, you need to tell me what's going on. Right now." And Emma, exhausted and scared and so tired of carrying everything alone, did. She told Rosie everything. The night she'd helped Marcus, the flowers, the threats, all of it. Rosie listened without interrupting, her expression growing more concerned with every word. When Emma finished, Rosie was quiet for a long moment. "You need to take some time off," she said finally. "What?" "No, Rosie, I can't afford paid time off. A week, maybe 2, until this situation is completely resolved. I can't have you here if there's a risk of these people coming back. Rosie, please, I need this job. And you'll still have it, but right now you need to be somewhere safe. Let that man, Marcus, let him handle this. And when it's over, you come back. Your job will be waiting." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're going to spend the next week deep cleaning my storage room when you get back." Emma laughed, a watery, exhausted sound. That evening, Emma sat in her apartment, staring at her phone. Marcus had texted, "The Castellanos have agreed to back off. You're safe, but please take precautions for the next few days until I'm certain." She should feel relieved. The threat was over. Everything would go back to normal. Except the next text changed everything. Her mother's doctor. Emma, we need to talk about starting the new treatment protocol. Please call me tomorrow to discuss timing and financial arrangements. Emma looked at the numbers in her bank account. The bills piled on her desk. The impossible math that didn't add up no matter how many times she tried. She thought about Marcus's offer. About pride versus practicality. About what she was willing to accept and what she couldn't live with. The next morning, Emma stood outside a sleek office building in Manhattan. Marcus's business address pulled up on her phone. She'd made it to the lobby twice before turning around. The third time, she forced herself through the door. The receptionist was polite. Do you have an appointment? No, but could you tell Marcus Bellini that Emma Torres is here? He'll know who I am. 5 minutes later, Emma was being escorted to a top-floor office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Marcus stood from behind his desk as she entered, surprise and concern crossing his face. Emma, is everything all right? Did someone... I need help, Emma said, the words rushing out before she could stop them. With my mother's treatment. I hate asking, I hate that I'm even here, but I'm out of options and I don't know what else to do. Marcus came around the desk. Okay, tell me what you need. And standing in that beautiful office with the city sprawling beneath them, Emma realized she'd just made another choice that would change everything. Some choices came easy. This one hurt, but it was the only one she had left. Marcus handled Emma's mother's medical bills anonymously through the hospital's assistance program. The Castellano family faced federal investigation within days. Their threats stopped completely. 2 weeks passed. Patricia's new treatment began showing positive results. Emma returned to work at Rosie's diner, her life slowly finding its rhythm again. On a quiet Thursday evening, Marcus visited the diner. He sat at table 8, the same booth as that rainy October night. Coffee? Emma asked with a slight smile. Please. Black. She poured his coffee and they talked. Really talked for the first time without fear or urgency. Marcus shared his plans for legitimizing his businesses completely. Emma spoke about her mother's progress, her dreams beyond just surviving. I can't be part of your world, Emma said gently. I know, Marcus replied. But maybe coffee sometimes? As friends? As friends, Emma agreed. He left a generous tip and a single white rose with a note. For your courage, always. Emma placed the flower behind the counter, a reminder that sometimes kindness, even impulsive, reckless kindness, can change lives in unexpected ways. She'd learned her worth, found her strength, and that was enough.